Well, today we have a special guest who was an amazing basketball player, also an amazing football player at Florida State, and he won the Heisman Trophy there. And this is Charlie Ward. So again, like I said, he was a great football player, played in the NBA for 12 seasons with the Knicks, the Spurs, and the Rockets. So Charlie, thanks so much for making time out of your busy schedule to come on the program. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on. I know we've been trying to do this for a minute, but I appreciate you having me on.
All right, so Charlie, let's kick this around now. You are a tremendous athlete, playing baseball, getting drafted by the Brewers, which some people may not know. They know a lot about your football and basketball career. Obviously, playing basketball and football at such a high level. Did your parents focus on playing sports, or what made you want to get into sports in general at such a young age?
Well, they didn't really force me to do that. That was something that I enjoyed doing. God had blessed me with a great gift of hand-eye coordination, and that's something that I enjoyed, doing. I always picked up a ball. If there wasn't a ball around, I made one, whether it's out of socks or something, readily available there in the house, tape, whatever. I made everything a ball, and I either was dunking it or shooting it or throwing it. And I was breaking windows. I was doing a lot of different things, but I just enjoyed it. It was something that, I grew up doing. My parents gave me in the backyard, I had a basketball hoop. I would go out and, shoot shots. It didn't matter what time, turn on the lights if it was late. So it was just something I always did. And then my dad was a coach. So, that didn't help either, because, he was always watching sports, and sports was always on television.
Right. So let's kick this around, Charlie. So talking about your football career first before we kick it around with basketball, can you speak about the recruiting process and why you chose Florida State?
Well, I was, I got a lot of letters back then. We didn't have stars and all these different things that they have today. But I got a lot of letters from a lot of schools, like my junior year, around my junior year, started getting a lot of letters. And then, of course, it was a little bit more serious my senior year. And there were some, big schools. There was Auburn, Georgia Tech, Georgia, Florida State. Those were like the main schools that I normally, and that were very interested, and I visited. And, when it came down to it, the last two schools that were, those were options was Florida State and University of Georgia. And, when I chose the school, I chose it based on, Coach Bowden, and his integrity. He's a Christian man, and he's a legend. But the main reason was, he allowed Brad Johnson to play quarterback at Florida State. And that was something that I was interested in doing, which was playing basketball and football at Florida State or in college. And the other school was another legend, Vince Dooley. But he hadn't allowed anyone to play, multiple sports, especially basketball and football. They were saying they would they would let me do it, but they didn't really have any history on this side. And also Florida State was a little bit closer to my hometown, which was another feather in the cap to be able to help me make a decision. And so I was grateful that I got an opportunity, to go. And it was a scholarship. And, I was grateful for that.
Right. So let's kick this around. Again, this is Charlie Ward, one of the top basketball players. He played with the Knicks, the Spurs, the Rockets, also was a Heisman Trophy winner at Florida State. And you spoke about Bobby Bowden. He was one of the reasons, Charlie, why you chose to play for Florida State. Can you speak about playing with him and the atmosphere he was, how that camaraderie he built with the guys?
Well, Coach was, his whole philosophy was built around family. Mm-hmm. and family values. And that's the way he treated us, as players. He was like another father. I call them village dads. And he surrounded himself with those type of coaches as well. And so we had a family environment. We enjoyed, just the competitive spirit, nature, the athletes that came through. We all just one accord, and it all centered around, trickle down from, the head, which was Coach Boughton. And so, he created that environment, created that culture, and that's the way we carried ourselves.
Well, I think about all the great players, and I heard this story, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. When Warwick Dunn was there, you were bonded with him extremely well. Can you speak about that?
Warwick and I were roommates his freshman year. I was a senior, he was a freshman, and we were roommates when he came in. And it was people, I was a freshman, true freshman, and I had a senior roommate who had a big effect on my life as far as, whether it was positive or negative. It was an effect. And so, for me to be able to share my experiences, my life with him and vice versa, with the things that he had gone through, was just, a great experience for both of us and a great need because we both learned from each other in a lot of ways. And so, I was grateful that I had an opportunity to, kind of be a mentor, be a big brother figure to him. And also just, to have someone that was like-minded in a lot of ways. And so he turned out to be a great athlete, but even a better person when it comes to just the things that he was able to accomplish while at Florida State and his professional career. At the size he was, he is, but his heart was always big. That was one thing I always admired about him, was he wasn't afraid to fail. He wasn't afraid to put himself out there, and he wasn't afraid to, come back to critics. People saying he's too small to do this and that, but, he always went out and played with a chip on his shoulder. And that was something that I always admired about him.
Charlie, let's talk as we dive in, because I do want to talk about your basketball career too. Last question as far as football goes. You went to 4 college football bowls and winning that national championship. Was that your favorite moment, winning the national championship, or what was your favorite moment or game playing at Florida State?
Well, the ultimate goal for every team is to win a championship. And if it's a national championship, that's like really great. We won a couple of ACC championships while I was there. But winning a national championship my senior year was definitely icing on the cake. Great way to be able to leave college. And, that's something that we always aspire to do once we got there. And we always normally had one team that kind of tripped us up, which was Miami. But, my senior year, we didn't go undefeated. We did beat Miami, but we didn't go undefeated. But the cards just kind of drew our way that year, because we did lose to Notre Dame. But Notre Dame came back the next week and lost to Boston College. And so that gave us another opportunity, very similar to some of the teams like Alabama, who, lost the game, then got an opportunity to play in the playoffs, and they ended up winning the championship. And so, because they had a better team. And I just think we were, that was always our goal, was to win a national championship, and that was one of my favorite moments for sure.
So can we talk about this? Because before we get into basketball, I know I said the last question on football, but since you kind of brought it up, football's changed a lot. We see that the quarterback doesn't get touched as much. There's a lot of rules as far as that goes to keep that safety of the quarterback in check. Can you talk about the differences of when you played college football to now and those safety, we look at the concussion rules also, the helmets are being changed to help those, not as many concussions rather happen. So can you speak about that?
Well, I mean, in life, that's what you want.
Right.
I mean, you want things to improve.
Right.
You shouldn't stay the same. And so, I've been out of football for quite some time, and you have seen changes made over the course of time, and it's just like laws. I know at one point the speed limit was 55, and now it's 70. On certain highways. So, those things do change, and there are reasons for it. And normally the reasons you make laws or changes is because it needs improving. And so I'm grateful that, they put in some of the measures as far as helmets and all those types of things, because people were, playing with concussions. And so all the different protocols that they're putting into place have been beneficial to the health. And there's been a lot of, lawsuits and those types of things behind it to be able to push this. But just like anything else, you still need to make the change if it's going to benefit the health and safety of the people that you're putting all your resources into. And then from the quarterback position, normally whenever your best players aren't on the field, and most of the times it's the quarterback because of major injuries, then you're going to work to clean that up as well. And then everyone else has to make adjustments. And it's no different than the rules that they make with pass interference and just different things that they put into place here in the past few years to be able to help with the safety of the players, and also making sure that you keep the quarterbacks, the ones that you're going to put on the face of a franchise or on television, in the game. And so they've made some adjustments there. But it's just like in the NBA, we used to have drag out fights. Freedom of movement was limited, and then they started to kind of wane some of the freedom of movement. And now what you see is just a lot of movement, happening, and there's not a lot of physicality in the sense of bumping guys off of cuts and getting in front of guys and all those types of things that we used to do. And so that's what life is about. And now you're getting games where, the players have improved three-point shooting in a lot of different ways. And so there's just been a lot of improvement, over the course of our time.
Charlie, I got to say this, though. Watching the Knicks and Heat series back in the early 2000s and the late 90s, those were some hell of a games with, the Knicks, Larry Johnson, Patrick Ewing, Zoe, Tim Hardaway, Dan Molly. Those were some games. I just feel like, me growing up in that time period, watching games like with those, with the fights and stuff, that I feel like that was basketball. And even if you go back and look back to the Celtics, Detroit, Lakers with Magic, I feel like, and you can disagree, but that's when basketball was basketball. It was physical. They had centers, real centers at those times. Now there's no centers. It's all about the 3-point. I don't know. It's just really not my type of basketball. What do you think about that?
I go back to the improvement of the game.
Yeah.
Guys have improved tremendously just from an athletic standpoint. Now we have all the different science-based things that guys are doing with strength and conditioning. We had some guys that were physical, big physical guys, but now you have guys who can actually run, fast and jump high. And they're big all at the same time. And so, and then you have, guys who can really shoot it. During the course of my time, there were a few of those guys that could actually had to, make sure that they didn't, stand out there and shoot. But now, pretty much everyone has to be able to shoot the 3-pointer. And the centers are 3-point shooters. For the most part, they can at least shoot it and make it. But during our time, it was all, centers. You had to play in the post, and you had to shoot mid-range shots. Very rarely did you see a center shooting a 3-pointer. That just didn't happen. And so, each his own. But I just like the way the game has evolved over the course of the years to where everyone's a threat from the 3-point line, or, and it also is better spacing. And you see a lot of ball movement, player movement in this day and age. And I know during my time, especially when I played with the Knicks and during it was a lot of sets where you line up and you run your set and you had your quick hitters, but it was mostly, a catch and shoot or a post up. But now you see a lot of one-on-one play, trying to get the best matchup, screen to get the best matchup. A lot of, what Miami's doing, pass and cut, get shooters, and just working to their strengths. So, that's just the biggest difference is you have more guys now that can handle the ball on the perimeter. And that's just, to me, I enjoy watching it. I coach basketball now. And so I just enjoy watching when guys can pass and cut. They can still do their one-on-one deal, but not where everyone's standing around watching one guy, dribble the ball.
So I want to end oh, go ahead. Sorry. And
then defensively, there are, I just like to see rotations, guys being able to rotate, the teams, working to stay in front of guys. And the teamwork aspect on the defensive end is very, that's kind of changed now where everything, most teams were switching everything. During my time, you didn't really switch. You had a certain, you're going to show or blitz the pick and roll just so you wouldn't have to switch, smaller guy to a bigger guy. But in this day and age, it doesn't matter. If it's small guys switching on a big guy, I mean, they try to limit that, but it still happens.
Now, I want to end the interview with a few more questions on basketball because I know you got to roll soon. And this is Charlie Ward here on Fire Breathing Rob. Charlie, let's talk about that great Seminole basketball team. You had 3 other players that played on the team that were also made it to the NBA as far as playing on the Seminoles with you. Can you speak about that team in '93 playing against Kentucky?
Well, we made a good run to get to the Elite Eight with that group. And, of course, we just weren't able to get over the hump. I think we ended up losing about 20 points. But we held it close early on, and then I think their depth kind of took its toll on us because we didn't play that many guys. But when it was all said and done, it was a great run for us. That was a very good team. With Doug Edwards, Bobby Sir, and Sam Cassell, being other guys that you mentioned that made it to the NBA. And so to be able to have that type of team, that was one of the furthest we had gone before. Coach Ham has taken the guys to the Elite Eight, since. But and then before us, it was a Final Four appearance back in the early 70s. So we were able to, do something that hadn't been done for quite some time. But it was definitely a great run for us. And playing on that team was fun because, as a quarterback, as a point guard, being able to play with those type of players, it makes your life a lot easier.
And as we end, I want to just talk lastly on some of the things you're involved with now. Now, you do have a foundation. You did put a book out. Can you speak to the viewers a little bit about those 2 things?
Foundation is a family foundation. My wife and I have Charlotte and Tanja Ward Family Foundation. And our main support is we help with disaster relief efforts with other organizations. My daughter has a holiday notes where she goes and with her and some of her friends do musical presentations or selections or programs for the elderly. And then she involves the community with, writing notes. Some of the kids from, our school, Florida State University School, they, after school program, they write some notes to the elderly during the holidays. And so she gives those to them. So we support her and her efforts to be able to, help uplift those that may be, in a nursing home or elderly home or assisted living facility or VA hospital. She's been there as well with some of her friends, Caroline. And so she's a music and athlete. So we support her and her efforts. And then the book, I had a book written about almost 2.5 years ago now, called The Athlete. You can get it on Amazon, or you can go to charlieward.org and order a book. And it's essentially my life story up until, not what I'm doing today, because I'm coaching basketball. At that time, I was coaching football, but I'm coaching. So, it was well written by John Finkel, was the writer, was the author. And so he did a great job of capturing my life story. And it actually is a good read. Short chapters, which is always great. But he captured a lot of my history and my story. And so it was definitely a great blessing.
All right, Charlie, thanks so much. Great advice, Charlie. And definitely for the viewers that are listening, thanks so much for listening. Thank you, Charlie, for coming on. And I definitely want to have you on again. There's so many basketball, football questions I had, but I know we're on a tight timeline. So with that, anyways, I'm going to say thank you. And definitely check out, if you want to check out Charlie, go to charlieward.org, his foundation. Also, the book is on there that we spoke about. Charlie, thanks again. Let's do this again down the road. I really appreciate your time today.
Well, I appreciate it, Rob, and you have a great day.